lost private. We're in Normandy.
Thanks for checking in here at the We're Not Lost Private podcast. We appreciate all your support. But do you know how else you can support us? By signing up at Patreon. For $3 a month, you'll have access to all of our episodes, plus access to all kinds of bonus material, like our quarterly newsletter, photographs, and official paperwork, and research that goes into each and every show. You can follow the pod on a multitude of platforms such as YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcast, Amazon Music, pretty much anywhere you catch your pods. So thanks for listening, and we'll see you soon. Welcome, everybody, to the We're Not Lost Private podcast. This is kind of like episode 36.5. It's not really a full episode. I had just dropped the In the Sausages episode 36 today, but with the 81st anniversary of D-Day coming up shortly, I wanted to make sure that I recorded something in advance, and it'll drop on the 6th. I'll have it all set up and ready to go. I just wanted to call to everyone's attention. I know I have a lot of friends that are over in Normandy right now that are getting ready to celebrate, memorialize, whatever way you want to describe it, the D-Day anniversary. And I know that the folks that listen to this podcast know that this is not really a time for celebration. It's a time for honoring. And really, when these anniversaries come up, I think more and more about the men I got to spend some time with over the years that were D-Day veterans. And as a result, I wrote a tribute to a number of them. Most of them, these are for the 506 men that I knew, but I'll also have some quotes from some other folks at the end, just to encapsulate what it was like as it, as they got ready to board the planes. And this kind of dovetails nicely from episode 36 to this. So I wanted to read this. I wrote this almost 10 years ago, and really it was written for the family members of the 506ers that I knew, so that they could get a good feeling for what the men were going through and what the men were doing right before they boarded the planes. A lot of them didn't have any idea. There's the old urban legend, which is largely true. The men didn't really talk about what happened in great detail. So I tried to take all the things that I learned from the men and encapsulate them into a write-up where the families could kind of understand what they were going through. And I titled it "The Night of Nights." Here goes. And they prepared for what would be the most momentous day of their lives. Those boys, and that's really what most of them were, sat in their marshalling areas, steeling themselves for what would forever be known as D-Day. They would soon be penetrating Hitler's vaunted Fortress Europe. And while they belonged to so many varying units, I'll stick close to my heart and knowledge base in my tribute. The invasion, to the short relief of many, had been postponed once already. The boys of the 506 Parachute Infantry Regiment sat in their tents. Some brooded over their prospects for survival. Some vowed revenge for brothers that were already lost. Others occupied their minds with cleaning their rifles or sharpening their trench knives for what seemed to be 100th or so time. Many played cards or craps with their newly issued invasion money, which changed hands as quickly as it went from the dispersing officer to each trooper. Their uniforms were as unbearable as the weight to board the aircraft. They wore their wool uniforms underneath their jumpsuits, and the whole ensemble had been impregnated with CC2 to ward off chemical attack. Unfortunately, CC2 had an undesirable side effect of making the wool itchier and tacky to the touch. It also sealed the fabric so that both uniform sets trapped body heat. Hell, the higher-ups even had them turn in their beloved jump boots for treatment. The boys got nickel haircuts and blackened their faces with soot and coffee grounds. They tied on silk evasion wraps around their necks and hung their cricket noisemakers from shoestrings around their necks and in their pockets. A healthy dose of rigger's tape was applied to keep equipment cinched tight to the body. You didn't want to lose gear during the jump. Your risers could get caught and wreck your descent. They put on their Mae Wests and flipped their musette bags forward on top of them. Nervous hands became steady as they did for real what they had practiced 100 times. The parachutes were handed out. They had previously tried them on for fit, and so they got their kit bag with their chute in reserve. Buddy helped Buddy strap on the harness and pack. The boys winced and complained heavily as the groin straps were J-hooked into their D-rings. Griswold bags were snapped on, and the belly band with reserve were attached and tightened. Finally, the newfangled British leg bag was strapped to their right legs and the drop rope to their harness. The bags were only meant to hold about 20 pounds of gear. As one jokester told me, we packed them like a broad would pack a suitcase, everything but the kitchen sink. Some sink troopers packed close to 80 pounds of equipment in them. It would not work out well. It was still light out due to British double standard time. The boys sat about waiting for the order to board their aircraft. They didn't have much choice with all the weight they were carrying. They read letters from Ike and Colonel Sink and stashed them between the helmet and their helmet liner. When the time came, each trooper needed help to stand and board. It was like pushing mules up a steep Italian hillside, only these mules weren't resisting. They just couldn't pull the weight up by themselves. With an Air Corps crew chief at the top of the stairs pulling and the jump master at the bottom pushing, each stick finally loaded. Once they were seated and the final checks were made by the crew, the engines roared to life. The shuddering C-47s made their way to the taxiway and once cleared, rumbled down the runway, finally leaping into the air. The sink men were finally on their way to the longest day. In grateful tribute to all the Currahee boys I have known, God bless you. But I mean, that's only one half of D-Day. The other half is what happened after they jumped from the aircraft. I pulled an account from Nick Cortese, who served in Fox Company of the 506, of his where he recounts his landing in Normandy. I landed in the biggest tree in Normandy. What a tangled mess. My leg pack containing my SCR 300 radio was in one part of the tree, while I was further down in the branches. About 50 yards away, a haystack burned fiercely, and some distance from that was an enemy machine gun nest. The gunner was firing away at me and other planes and paratroopers, but apparently didn't get a good bead on me. After what seemed like hours, I finally cut myself loose from my harness and climbed down my jump rope. Nick would obviously go on to survive D-Day and all the subsequent campaigns. I think one good account that kind of wraps up this particular drop is one from Ernie Pyle. Many of you have probably read it or seen it somewhere. To me, it kind of hammers home the impact of what happened on that day. Pyle didn't go in, obviously, in the initial assault. He came in later on, so he got to see the aftermath of what happened. Here's what he had to say. Submerged tanks and overturned boats and burned trucks and shell-shattered jeeps and sad little personal belongings were strewn all over these bitter sands. That, plus the bodies of soldiers lying in rows covered with blankets, the toes of their shoes sticking up in a line as though on drill, and other bodies, uncollected, still sprawling grotesquely in the sand or half hidden in the high grass beyond the beach. So as we come to this 81st anniversary of D-Day, please keep in mind all the men and women that served during this time, and especially those that didn't make it home to their families. Thanks for listening. I appreciate all of you. Take care.